Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Bola Tinubu sets up tripartite economic advisory committee as he gears up efforts towards stabilizing Nigeria's economy. Qatari government upturns decision against hosting of a business and investment forum on the sidelines of President Bola Tinubu's visit to the oil-rich state on March the 2nd. Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, insists on nationwide protests, raises alarm by plans to infiltrate its protests by groups sponsored by government. And former U.S. President Donald Trump clinches the Republican presidential nomination in South Carolina as he edges towards his ambition for the White House seat. President Bola Tinubu has set up a tripartite economic advisory committee in what he describes as part of his efforts at stabilizing Nigeria's economy. The committee, which comprises representatives from the federal and state governments, as well as the organized private sector, was assembled and announced by the president during a meeting he held with critical stakeholders, including members of the organized private sector at the State House, Abuja.
What we are doing right and what we are doing wrong, to bring life back to the economy. Like I said many times, the people of this country are only the people we have to please. And we are very much concerned, from the students to mothers, the fathers, the farmers, the traders, and realizing that every one of us, we have to fetch water from the same well. We are looking for additional efforts that might help the downtrodden Nigerians, and we will provide that hope and the assurance that the economic recovery is on its way. We are not saying that we have all the answers, but we will not be blamed for not to try. We assure Nigerians that we will do our best to get our Marshall Plan in place and fashion out the best economic future for this country.
Some members of the private sector who attended the meeting speak on the outcome and efforts being made to put the economy back on track.
What we discuss is generally about the economy, food security, security of the nation. We discuss everything in detail, and I think there is the economic, presidential advisory, which has been set up. And I think this will look at all the issues and address them. Coming from job creation, coming from food security, coming from also reflating the economy. We are hopeful, and we are a great nation. We have what it takes to turn around the economy, and we are going to do that.
They will have one national economy, and it's the responsibility of the 225 million Nigerians to work together to make it great. And we have all the potentials, and we have all that it takes to make Nigeria, get right through these turbulent times and put the economy back on a sustainable keel. I think there is a unity of purpose, a determination, the sense of patriotism and determination by all to make it happen. And by the special grace of God, it's now the execution. Once it's all got done, executed, and this becomes a standing committee that will be meeting from time to time, to evaluate how things are going and make recommendations to Mr. President and to the nation as well.
It was open, it was frank, and it was exhaustive. And some of the issues we discussed, for example, like the foreign exchange rate, which we know has always been the problem, for the past 2 or 3 months. We have discussed on how to, bring the foreign exchange, the rate down, because we all know that what is happening in, as regards the foreign exchange is artificial, it's manipulative, And thank God, the CBN, is doing quite a lot now. The exchange rate has come down from 1.8 to maybe 1.615 now. And as we all know, everything in Nigeria is indexed to the foreign exchange, especially when it comes to, stuff that we import into the country.
I leave that meeting with a lot of enthusiasm, excitement, and optimism about the future of our country. I believe that implementing the decisions we arrived at today will help propel our economy and help alleviate the poverty in the land, help create employment, and help put food on the table.
I can assure you that all hands are on deck. All governors have resolved to join hands with Mr. President to ensure that you provide the necessary intervention to cushion the effect of what we are going through, whilst we are waiting for the implementation and the evidence of the fiscal and monetary policies that are already in place. So the teeming public should have that confidence that we are not leaving them alone. In my state and in other states, we are bringing in rice, we are bringing in food items, and we are selling at rates that obtained before, the downslide of the naira. So we are going to be doing all those kind of things to bring stock to the common man until when you begin to see the evidence of the fiscal and monetary policy.
There were some state governors and, of course, members of the organized private sector there on the outcome of their meeting with the President Bola Tinubu on the tripartite Economic Advisory Committee, which has already been set up. The government of Qatar has made a U-turn over its earlier decision regarding the hosting of a business and investment forum on the margins of President Bola Tinubu's visit to Qatar on March the 2nd this year. A statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the Embassy of Qatar in Abuja made the reversal known in a note dated February the 23rd, 2024, reiterating that the Qatar Chamber of Commerce will host the event on March the 3rd, as proposed by the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Earlier, the presidency had dismissed insinuations that the contents of a leaked diplomatic correspondence is a snub on President Tinubu by the Qatari government. According to a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, the leaked correspondence between the Embassy of the State of Qatar in Abuja and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs regarding the President's state visit to Qatar is for a private sector-led business and investment forum put together by the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA, and Qatar's Chambers of Commerce and Industry, where business people from Nigeria will engage their counterparts from Qatar on commercial and investment opportunities available in both countries. A civil society organization, Lagos People's Assembly, LPA, has urged the Nigeria Labour Congress, that's the NLC, to shelve its planned 2-day protest for the sake of national peace and security. The group insists that the trauma of the 2020 #EndSARS protest, with its destruction of life, public and private property, still haunts the country to date. They want organized labor to opt for constructive engagement with the government instead of disrupting the socio-economic life at this point in time.
As the Lagos People's Assembly, which is an assemblage of Nigerians of different ethnic, religious and professional calling, living and doing business in Lagos, that we are earnestly adding our voice to that of other patrons and men and women of goodwill and peace, to call on the Nigerian Labour Congress to shelve its 2-day protest marches for the sake of national peace and security. While we recognize the right of the labor unions to embark on protest or strike, as consensual citizens and residents of Lagos, we are conscious that labor as a factor of production creates wealth, which is the motto of the Nigerian Labour Congress. And going on a protest march at this point in time will be injurious to the economic well-being of Lagosians, Nigerians, and a negation of what Labour stands for. Lagos State, like we all know, is a volatile environment because it is the envy of anti-democratic elements who will stop at nothing to pull the state and Nigeria backward at the slightest opportunity. The trauma of the 2020 NSAS protests, with its damage to limbs, destruction of lives and public and private properties, still haunts us till date. The only solution to our economic challenges is constructive engagement between the government and the citizenry, and not protest marches or strikes.
Meanwhile, the leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress, the NLC, has raised an alarm over plans by groups allegedly sponsored by the government to infiltrate their planned nationwide protest. In a statement signed by the president of the NLC, Mr. Joe Ajero, he alleged that one of the groups being sponsored to attack its members during the protest is called the Nigeria Civil Society Forum. The statement notes that the workers will not chicken out of the plans to protest over the rising costs of living. The Labour Union wants the state to allow the workers to exercise their constitutionally protected rights instead of resorting to intimidation as a solution to protests occasioned by the current hardship being experienced by Nigerians. Meanwhile, human rights activist and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, is asking the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, to direct the Nigeria Police to provide adequate security for members of the Nigeria Labour Congress ahead of the union's planned nationwide protest in response to the economic challenges and cost of living in the country. In a letter to the Minister, Mr. Falana recalled the responsibility of the police to provide security cover for public meetings, rallies or processions following notification to the police. The letter reads in part, quote, "While we have advised the members of the NLC to conduct the rallies scheduled for February 27th to the 28th, 2024 in a peaceful manner, we urge you to use your good offices to direct the Inspector General of Police to provide adequate security to the conveners and participants in the protest in line with the provisions of Section 83(4) of the Police Establishment Act." The human rights activist said the minister has no right to stop the NLC from embarking on a public rally with a threat of contempt of court without a court ruling. Citing federal government's withdrawal of the contempt proceedings filed against the NLC and the TUC for embarking on public protest on August 2nd, 2023, Mr. Falana said the minister should not have threatened the NLC with contempt of court over its plan to hold rallies from February the 27th to the 28th. He adds that the National Industrial Court has not restrained the members of the NLC from exercising their fundamental rights to freedom of assembly and freedom of expression to protest against the excruciating economic pains being experienced by the people. The interim administrator of the Presidential Amnesty Program is appealing to state and local governments to serve their citizens and ensure they are empowered adequately. Major General Barry Ndiomo, retired, who was speaking during an exclusive interview with Channels Television, says the state of the Niger Delta region would have been better if the various state governments were more involved in the service and development of their citizens.
One of the reasons why we have a lot of these pockets of crisis across Nigeria is because of the failure of government at the state and local government levels. Children who have not been afforded the opportunity of being educated, unemployment, of course it leads to unemployment, and even youth unemployability. So it's a twin thing. If you are not educating them, then please provide them with the skills so they do not become useless to society. And I think these things are absent in some of these states. The Presidential Amnesty Program was and is an ad hoc arrangement. It should not become a permanent institution in our society.
To catch a full interview with Major General Ndiomo, retired, watch Newsnight on Monday by 9 p.m. on all Channels television platforms. In part two, after the break, clash between two bandit groups in Zamfara State leaves scores dead and several others injured. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. President Bola Tinubu sets up a tripartite economic advisory committee as he gears up efforts towards stabilizing Nigeria's economy. Qatari government upturns its decision against hosting of a business and investment forum on the sidelines of President Bola Tinubu's visit to the oil-rich state on March the 2nd. Nigeria Labour Congress insists on nationwide protests, raises alarm by plans to infiltrate its protest by groups sponsored by government. And former U.S. President Donald Trump clinches the Republican presidential nomination in South Carolina as he edges towards his ambition for the White House seat. On this day, 12 months ago, Nigerians were queuing to cast their votes in the presidential elections. Though the ballot queues have gone, new queues of hunger, poverty, and economic anxiety are some of the concerns that President Bola Tinubu now faces. This week, the National Bureau of Statistics released the country's latest economic growth report. Now, the summary of the report is that the Nigerian economy is still growing, but slowly. What more do these economic statistics tell us about Nigeria's productivity and prosperity? Babajide Ogunsoro, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is right here to share more insights. It's great to have you on the news at 10 again, Babajide.
Good evening, Ayatollah.
All right, so just before we go into the economic growth figures, of course, today marks it 1 year since the presidential election, or after the presidential election. Now, is there any statistics, measuring a public sentiment concerning that event?
There are statistics. There's a job approval rating for the president, which my firm, in partnership with other firms, are working on, and that report will be available before the next 12 weeks, 3 months, when the president will be 1 year in office. And in the president's job approval rating, which is like a proxy for public sentiment, it has some good news, some bad news, and some shocking news, and we'll be here on May 29 to look at the president's job approval rating in the last 12 months. But speaking of the economic growth figures, I would like us to take a look at what exactly and where we were in just about 3 decades ago, when it was the elections of 1993, Hope 1993. And in that election, Nigeria was in such a bad shape that Senator Tinubu was advising Chief Moshood Kashimawo Abiola that he should come to salvage Nigeria. This was in 1993. Senator Tinubu was advising the candidates. Now the president, we've seen, is having a tripartite meeting with all stakeholders, is now the one looking for advice. But Ayotunde, beyond what is in front of us, I'd like to talk about the significance of 1993 and how it compares to today. In 1993, Senator Tinubu thought things were so bad because then a bag of rice was 75 naira for this 5-kilogram bag. I remember in 1993, my mother would go to the market and would bring this similar bag, and she would complain, 75 naira for a 5-kilogram bag of rice in 1993. Now, it's important that you keep that information in your mind. 75 naira in 1993. Ayotunde, today, what will 75 naira get you? This is it. So, 1993, 75 naira gets you a bag of 5-kilogram rice. In 2024, here is the equivalent cost of raw rice, 75 naira per spoon.
A massive drop-off.
That is the situation we find ourselves today. Incomes are shrinking, productivity has dropped, and overall, despite the growth reported by the National Bureau of Statistics, yes, we're growing, but the growth shows that we are significantly and severely growing below potential.
All right, so Babajide, what is the situation with domestic food production? I mean, what are the facts really?
Looking at the facts, it lets you, part of what I thought about, lets you understand why Nigerians are hungry and angry. Let's take a look at the facts on crop production. It allows us to understand the question which a lot of Nigerians are asking. Why is there so much hunger? And it's because the summary is we didn't focus on the numbers. Looking at what has happened since 2019, Ayotunde, look at our growth in crop production. In 2019, crop production growth, these are reports from the National Bureau of Statistics, not my numbers, 2.5% in 2019. Look at what happened in 2020 and 2021, a significant drop to 2.2, 2.3%. A further drop in 2022, crop production grew by only 2%. And last year, our worst in recent history, crop production output growing by only 1.9%. So in summary, we are today not just because of the forex challenges and because of manufacturing concerns. We are today we are where we are with low food production because it has been a journey. We have been slipping, but we have failed to look ourselves in the eyes to say that these numbers were not healthy. So today's crop production situation and why prices are skyrocketing is because in the last half a decade, things have been getting worse. That is the summary.
So what does this report, I mean, what does it really tell us? Does it give any information on how much impact Nigeria has achieved, from the government in terms of private sector investments, of course, in agriculture, both government and private sector, that is?
We're at the situation where we need to tell ourselves the truth, Ayotunde. There's a phenomenon called the barber's chair syndrome, whereby the barber's chair keeps spinning, but it's not making any progress. A lot of motion, but no movement. And that is the situation in Nigeria's agriculture. These are not my facts. These are the facts from the National Bureau of Statistics, Ayotunde. Let's take a look at exactly how Nigeria's agriculture has been since independence, because it allows us to focus on the numbers, and the numbers speak to us. Look at what happened in 1960. Take a look at the information in front of you. It allows us to see that there really hasn't been anything that has been transforming Nigeria's agriculture. Independence, agriculture was about approximately 63% the size of the Nigerian economy. 20 years after, it was down to 20%. Ayotunde, 20 years after, still just about 20%. And 20 years after, still 24%. Based on the facts from the National Bureau of Statistics, agriculture still is at 23, 24%. So the summary is, Ayotunde, in 4 decades, Nigeria's agricultural situation has pretty much been the same. There has been nothing transformational about Nigeria's agricultural sector. That is exactly what the numbers are telling us, whereby since 1980, agricultural's concentration of our economy has been the same, 20%. 20 years after, 20%. 20 years after, 20%. The report from this week, 20%. So all the investments from government and private sector hasn't achieved much. And that's because agriculture is a sector that employs most Nigerians. And if that sector isn't growing transformationally, then really nothing is happening.
Which brings to the question, I mean, what other critical sectors can actually assist in economic growth and development? Of course, you've talked about agriculture not getting the much attention. And, I mean, for a country with a large population like ours, over 200 million, what's going on? How do we get that solved?
So there are several ways we could look at it. One of the ways I like to look at it is to look at Nigeria's top 7 sectors, and that's because Nigeria's top 7 sectors accounts for 70% of the size of the economy. In this report by the National Bureau of Statistics, there are some good news, yet there are some bad news. And I would like us to take a look at these big 7, because that's really much what Nigeria is today. It allows us to look at how much the big 7 are growing compared to 2022. Look at crop production. In 2023, grew by 1.9%. Trade, 1.7% annual growth. But look at financial institutions growing by over 28% in the last 1 year. That is good news, but that information is also self-indicting, because financial institutions are growing by 28%, yet crop production, trade, food, beverages, and tobacco drinks are growing below potential. In simple terms, the good news is the financial institutions are growing. The bad news based on this report clearly shows that Nigeria's financial institutions are not helping other sectors to grow. And that is the summary of what we have in front of us.
So should we have any fears of another recession? Very quickly.
Clearly, based on the numbers, there's a lot of good news. There are no fears of recession. The summary is the Nigerian economy is resilient. It's growing. If we take a look at the numbers, the summary is our growth is just slow. And we are growing even slower than expected. So 2021, annual growth 3.4%. 2022, there was still growth, but slower than 2021. And last year, this report this week has shown that the Nigerian economy is still growing, but it's growing even slower than it did in 2022 and 2021. So the summary is no fears of a recession, but Ayotunde, sometimes there are things that are even worse than a recession. I'll share that with you in future.
We'll leave it at that. Babajide Ogunsanya, thank you so much for your thoughts on the news.
The pleasure is all mine.
A fire has ravaged the private residence of the Minister of State for the Federal Capital Territory, Maria Mahmood, located in Asokoro, Abuja. Now confirming the incident over a phone conversation with Channels Television, the minister's aide, Mr. Austin Elemwe, stated that the fire occurred around 10:30 a.m. today, engulfing the first floor of the duplex and causing significant damage to the property. Fortunately, no harm befell the occupants. While the exact cause of the fire outbreak remains unknown, Mr. Austin suggested that it may have been triggered by an electric spark. A score of bandits have been reportedly killed following a clash between two bandit groups in a forest in Safi local government area of Zamfara State. A resident told Channels Television that the two groups engaged in a fierce gunfight on Saturday, where scores lost their lives. According to him, the fight was sparked after the leader of one of the groups, Ado Alero, who is an indigent of the community, refused the rival bandit group from neighboring Katsina State to operate in the area after it invaded some communities with intention to kidnap the residents. Still ahead on the news at 10, 79-year-old man, graduate stands out as the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University graduates over 19,000 students. Please join us again. Welcome back. The governor of Taraba State, Mr. Agbu Kefes, is calling on well-meaning Nigerians to complement the efforts of government in grassroots development through interventions that gives back to the community. Governor Kefes was speaking at the commissioning of the first community-based eye hospital in the state, donated by elder statesman and Nigeria's former Chief of Army Staff, General Theophilus Danjuma, retired, in his hometown of Takum local government area of Taraba State.
At this occasion, to inaugurate the first community-based eye hospital in the state, donated by elder statesman and Nigeria's former Chief of Army Staff, General Theophilus Danjuma, retired, the national coordinator of the National Eye Health Program laments that vision loss accounts for the annual loss of $411 billion globally in economic productivity. She states that the elimination of blindness is key to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals of Nigeria.
Zero hunger, general health and well-being, quality education, gender equity, decent work and economic growth. Indeed, good vision is that golden thread that runs through the Sustainable Development Goals. Therefore, we at the Federal Ministry of Health are delighted about this great project.
Retired General Theophilus Danjuma, in his speech, insists that Nigeria as a country must be peaceful with trained manpower and job opportunities to checkmate those traveling abroad for greener pastures.
People look up to us. But right now, we are not behaving as leaders of the world. As a nation, we must change. It is time for us to change. But I can assure you
that we have peace. If we have peace, and we must have peace in this state and in the country, in the next few years, Takum will be a different place.
For Governor Abu Kefas, the philanthropic gesture of retired General T.Y. Danjuma will complement the efforts of government in providing accessible and affordable healthcare services, especially in local communities. He appeals to the organized private sector to emulate the elder statesman.
General Danjuma's example serves as a reminder that each of us has the power to make a difference, and that by working together, we can create a better future for all.
Residents of this community and adjoining communities are optimistic that the existence of this eye hospital will reduce the vulnerability of residents to some of the eye-related ailments predominant in the area.
The Director General of the National Identity Management Commission, Bisoye Koka Odushote, says front-end partners with high infraction rates will not be onboarded again as the Commission lifts the suspension order placed on some of them. She also adds that payment for service delivery due to the FEPs is currently ongoing and therefore expects more Nigerians to be enrolled for the NIN, that's the National Identification Number. Our correspondent, Chris Lems, reports.
Enterprise services and network infrastructure.
This is a meeting between the National Identity Management Commission and their front-end partners to work out modalities for their operations going forward after a break occasioned by allegations of extortion and other infractions leveled against them by applicants. The Director General of NIMC spells out our expectation of them in this new dispensation.
Let us collectively safeguard against errors, fraud, and any compromise to the sanctity of our database. When an applicant steps into an enrollment center, they place their trust in us. They trust that their personal information will be handled confidentially and it is secure, and that their name will be protected.
The target is to get more Nigerians registered, a process the FEPs are meant to accelerate for a fee.
We've had a series of meetings and we've had assurance that the outstanding, the commencement of payment of outstanding, but we still want to get that reconfirmation because most of us have not received some of the alerts.
This strategy development and implementation session has also taken into consideration other hurdles to the NIN registration process, including dearth of infrastructure.
Some of the things that have happened in some of our centers are not things we should raise our head high about. But basically, we would raise our head high because we recognize the challenges we have internally and we are addressing them.
While the front-end partners, FEPs with high infraction rate, won't be onboarded, others who have performed will get their payment, says the Director General.
And one of the things that we factored into place was for us to check in the back end to obviously validate and verify that the total number of names they claim they have generated is what we're actually going to pay them, which is the normal process.
With the grey area sorted and the FEPs back on board, the National Identity Management Commission would expect an increase in the numbers of citizen enrollment, which currently stands at 104 million. And Nigerians, on the other hand, would expect a hassle-free NIN registration process with improved and robust infrastructure. Chris Lems, Channels Television News.
The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetukun, says serious efforts are applied by the police and other security agencies to combat insurgency, kidnapping, and other criminal vices across the country. The IG made the statement at a 3-day program for officers of the Force Criminal Investigation Department held in Lagos.
The state of insecurity in Nigeria is raising more concerns, and the need to keep in tune with international best practices, especially in the area of investigation, has become more pertinent. This is the first series of intensive lecture for officers of the highest investigating arm of the Nigeria Police, the Force Criminal Investigation Department.
As critical elements in the drive to close the professional gap.
The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, is in attendance. The police boss who once served in the department says the CID strengthens the operation of the force.
With the commencement of the training for detectives here today, we are assured that the journey to guiding the department towards a path of excellence and ethical rebirth has commenced. Having had the privilege of serving as the Deputy Inspector General of Police for the first CID, I can personally attest to the challenges within the department. It is incumbent upon us, therefore, to confront these challenges frontally by ensuring the highest standards of conduct and investigation, recognizing and systematically addressing the ethical and investigative capacity gaps is essential to repositioning the department effectively.
Dr. Benjamin Aliko explains that the 3-day brainstorming session is apt at this time.
I see this conference really strengthening the capacity of the men and officers of the Criminal Investigation Department, because going by the content and the commitment that has been demonstrated by the organizers of this conference.
At the end of the session, the police chief adds that there are concerted efforts to mop up arms while curbing all forms of criminal vices across the country.
We are not only mopping up arms, we are also stopping the inflow of arms into the country. We are paying attention to the routes where these arms are coming into the country. We are not doing it alone. We are collaborating with other agencies, the Nigerian Customs, the Nigerian Immigration, the military, the DSS. All of us are involved in this, and we are doing our best, and we are sure that we will solve this problem.
The police say same interactive session will be replicated in FCID annexes in Gombe, Kaduna, and Enugu State.
In a crowd of graduates at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Bauchi's combined convocation ceremony, a remarkable 79-year-old man stood out as he received his PhD in mechanical engineering. During the ceremony, the president's representative addressed the audience and vowed to put an end to the persistent strike action in universities. He also gave an assurance that measures were being taken to tackle the issue of fake certificates. Our correspondent, Hajara Aliyu, reports.
Graduates from different faculties of the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Bauchi making their way into the convocation arena to be presented with various degrees at the combined 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th convocation ceremony. Shortly after, the Senate procession joins the gathering as proceedings begins. An extraordinary event takes place during the award of PhDs to 176 graduates as a 79-year-old man distinguishes himself as he officially became a holder of a Doctor of Philosophy in Mechanical Engineering. This remarkable feat was attained at the age of 74 during the 2018-2019 session.
When I came to the country, I couldn't get anybody to supervise my PhD degree program until I met Professor Amisu, Professor Diso, and Professor Ashere. When I discussed with them, Professor Ashere volunteered to supervise me for the turbo engine project, and that was how I became a student of ATBU. Thank you very much.
Additionally, the university is graduating its first batch of 25 medical students as the institution recognizes Khadija Garba, who received 9 out of the 10 awards from the School of Medical Sciences.
Congratulations, Dr. Garba Khadija Mohammed.
The Vice Chancellor, Professor Muhammad Abdulaziz, presents his address.
At this juncture, let me call on the federal government to continue introducing changes that are in consonance with modern times in promoting the deployment of our Nigerian universities. The government has proven to be responsive and tuned with reality. The satisfaction of the university staff is the first significant step towards conducive atmosphere for meaningful learning.
Meanwhile, Governor Bala Mohammed, represented by his deputy, pledges ongoing support and collaboration with the institution.
The purpose of education to the distinguished governor of Bauchi State is to turn mirrors into windows. He also once told me that this education you are seeing is the vaccine of violence. It is his humble belief. Education is not a preparation for life only. He said education is life itself.
Next to address the audience is the visitor to the university, President Tinubu, who was represented at the ceremony.
Nigerian universities have witnessed untold hardship situation over the years due to frequent strike actions. We are now focused on creating an enabling environment for sustainable dialogue in order to bring frequent strike action by staff union into Nigerian union system to a permanent end.
The ceremony also includes the conferment of honorary doctorate degrees and the recognition of the first emeritus professor. The graduates are officially inducted into the Alumni Association as the convocation comes to a close. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
The governor of Kogi State, Usman Ododo, has promised to invest vigorously in agriculture to create jobs, reduce poverty, and improve the economic development of the state. The governor stated this in Lokoja, the Kogi State capital, while addressing critical stakeholders in the agriculture sector on the way forward in the production of farm produce.
Please, thank you. This meeting of farmers in Kogi State is at the instance of Governor Usman Ododo, who wants to hear directly from the farmers about the challenges they are facing and suggestions on how the government can help them improve in boosting food production in the state. Stakeholders in agriculture, farmers, top government functionaries and legislators in the state are all at the glass hall of the government house Lokoja for this meeting, which they hope will mark a significant milestone in the collective journey towards agricultural excellence in the state.
As we deliberate on the challenges and opportunities before us,
the Commissioner for Agriculture in the state reminds the gathering of the pivotal role agriculture plays in the socio-economic fabric of any society, which is not mainly an occupation but the livelihood of the community, economic growth, and nourishing the nation.
We will work closely with financial institutions to enhance access to credit and financial services for our farmers and agri-businesses, ensuring they have the necessary resources to invest in their operations and expand their productivity.
One after the other, the farmers state some of the challenges facing them in the sector and offer suggestions to the government on the way forward.
Lokoja local government is supplying 5 states from the north. Ibajida and Nigalamela are supplying 6 states from the east and central south. Please help us out.
If my farmer go to the farm and do manual operation or non-hectare, the yield he will get is just less than 10 metric tons.
On his part, Governor Ododo promises that his administration will prioritize investment in agriculture by providing adequate security, access roads, and soft loans that will enable farmers engage in massive food production.
We are committed to working with you to find a lasting solution to the highlighted problems. In addition to address the challenges, let us also utilize the opportunities that line up before us, because agricultural sector holds immense potential for job creation, poverty alleviation, and economic development.
As Nigerians grapple with rising cost of living, this initiative of the Kogi State government may reduce the food crisis if words are matched with action.
And now to the arts. The Evil Genius is an exhibition of African visual and multi-sensory art as artists create works inspired by singer and songwriter Mr. Easy's album at the Windsor Gallery in Lagos. The viewers also get an opportunity to listen to the track and enjoy the works of art that accompany it. We'll see it on Art Review tonight.
The Windsor Gallery in Lagos plays host to this multi-African sensory music and visual art experience, as inspired by Afropop singer and songwriter Oluwatosin Ajibade, better known as Mr. Easy, from his album The Evil Genius.
Today's event goes around Mr. Easy and his project, The Evil Genius, which is a musical and artistic project. So Mr. Easy engaged 16 different artists from the continent to interpret tracks from his upcoming album, or his then launched album, called The Evil Genius.
The album, which was released last year, was recorded in about 10 cities and is personal to this creative, as it touches on subjects like love, family, betrayal, and more, which select artists have captured in this exhibition, with paintings done in various media.
It's a merger between music and art, so it's the first of its kind collaboration with 13 African artists from 8 different African countries, and it's my most personal work where I talk about my life. So I talk about family, love, friendship, betrayal, fear, jealousy, hatred, and I end it with Thanksgiving. And it's Banku music. It has high life, it has grime, it has reggae, it has a little bit of dancehall, Afrobeat. It's the most beautiful project out right now.
It's a unique fusion of music and visual art, as Mr. Easy commissioned these African visual artists as listed on the wall to create images that represent each of his album's 16 tracks.
I think the artwork is very interesting. It allows 16 people to today give a different point of view on where we are as a society and where we are as a culture. So this possibility to engage with their points of view, and on top of that, Mr. Easy's new album, I think is a really, really interesting place to be for the culture and for the creative space.
This collaboration once again shows the beauty of Africa's vibrant pop music and visual arts scene, which makes a powerful statement about the continent's creativity and ingenuity.
Dutch international Virgil van Dijk headed in the winner 2 minutes from the end of extra time to hand Liverpool FC a record 10th League Cup with a 1-0 victory over Chelsea at Wembley Stadium. The captain had given the Merseyside Giants the lead in the 60th minute, but was ruled offside by VAR as the game ended goalless at regulation time. In Jurgen Klopp's final season in charge, the Reds remain on course for a potential quadruple as they lead the English Premier League and are into the last 16 of both the English FA Cup and the UEFA Europa League. Super Falcons head coach Randy Waldrum and captain Rasheedat Ajibade are confident the team will overcome the challenge of Cameroon and reach the final round of the qualifying series for this year's Olympic Games in Paris. Waldrum led the Falcons to a scoreless draw in the first leg in Douala on Friday, and then both squads joined the same flight to Abuja this morning. Nigeria will take on Cameroon at the MKO Abiola National Stadium in Abuja by 4 p.m. on Monday.
We'll go for it tomorrow and go for the win. It's now our home pitch and our home fans and playing back in Nigeria. So I think the approach will be a very aggressive approach to to go out and secure the victory.
The most important thing is the team must win. So it's not about who scored the goal. It's just going to be, we have to win, we have to play to win, so whoever scores, so long Nigeria scale through to the fourth round of the qualification stage. So that's what's more important to me.
Meanwhile, the sports minister, John Eno, watched the Falcons' final training session ahead of tomorrow's clash. He believes the players have what it takes to beat the Cameroonians and even pick a ticket for the Olympic Games. Now, the Falcons last played at the Olympics in China of 2008.
The expectations of Nigerians will be that tomorrow they should be able to win. And why not? They are rated the best in Africa. In the world, they're about the world's best 10. So nobody expects anything different from victory tomorrow. So for me, as sports development minister, it was important to come, watch them train, and have one or two things to say to them to encourage them and let them understand that the whole country is full of expectation. The whole country is happy and is very proud of their achievements. The Olympic ticket, that is in focus. All of them know the importance of appearing at the Olympics.
Cape Verde beat Nigeria 78-62 in the final Group B match of the FIBA AfroBasket 2025 qualifiers in Tunisia. The D-Tigers hit the ground running, claiming the first quarter 24-16, but dropped the tempo in the second, losing 9-23, the third 18-21, and the final quarter 11-18, and turns the ball over 17 times. Devin Ake was Nigeria's top performer with 24 points and 9 rebounds. With this result, Nigeria lost all 3 matches in this qualifier window. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has won the Republican presidential nomination in South Carolina. Now, he won his primary opponent, Nikki Haley's home state, by a 20-point margin, his 4th consecutive victory. During the celebration speech, Mr. Trump made no mention of Haley, who has vowed to remain in the race. He instead set his sights on the general election in November, telling the crowd, quote, "We are going to look Joe Biden right in the eye. He's destroying our country, and we're going to say, 'Get out, Joe. You're fired.'" Mr. Trump lauded his party's unity after the results, saying, quote, "There's never been a spirit like this. I have never seen the Republican Party so unified." Ms. Haley, who once served as a popular 2-term governor of South Carolina, congratulated her opponent on his victory in her speech. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed during the Russian invasion of that country. President Zelensky made the statement today in Kiev. He said he would not give the number of wounded, as that would help Russian military planning. Ukrainian officials do not usually make casualty figures public, and other estimates are much higher. It comes after Defense Minister Rustem Umerov said half of all Western aid for Ukraine has been delayed, costing lives and territory. President Zelensky said he was providing an updated death toll in response to the inflated figures that Russia has quoted. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu has set up a tripartite economic advisory committee as he gears up efforts towards stabilizing Nigeria's economy. Now, the president announced this at a meeting with leaders of the organized private sector, and some of those in attendance include the businessman Aliko Dangote, Tony Elumelu, Abdul Samad Rabiu, Wale Tinubu, Bismarck Rwane, and the DG of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Shegun Ajayi Kadir. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. You have a good night, and please stay safe.